Let me ask you a slightly uncomfortable question. If something happens to you tomorrow, like you don't come back, what actually happens to your YouTube channel? And not what you hope happens or what you assume happens, but what actually happens. Because here's the thing, this comes up a lot for successful creators. 6 figures, 7 figures, and full-on businesses. And the assumption usually sounds something like, my family would figure it out, right? Maybe. But maybe isn't a plan, especially when it comes to YouTube. Welcome to Money Made Easy for Creators, the podcast for creators with real businesses and real income who don't want to DIY their finances or guess if they're doing it right. I'm Brad Clark, a certified financial planner and owner of Finchley Finance. I help creators outsource the planning and the decisions around their personal and business finances so nothing important gets missed while you focus on building what you've created. I want to walk you through what actually happens to a YouTube channel when a creator dies. And not the legal theory, not the assumptions, but like the practical reality. So we're going to talk about whether your family can still get paid, how access really works, and why a lot of very successful creators are unknowingly leaving behind a mess. And by the end of this episode, you should have pretty clear answers to 3 things. 1, would your channel keep making money? 2, could your family actually access it? And 3, what decisions should you be thinking about now while you still have control of everything? And to get there, we have to start with a really common assumption because it's the assumption that causes almost all the problems. Most people assume YouTube works like a bank account or a house, like I have a will, everything goes to my spouse. Done. But YouTube doesn't care about your will. YouTube doesn't get notified when you die. It doesn't transfer any sort of ownership, and it doesn't reach out to your family and say, hey, sorry for your loss. Here's how to keep those AdSense checks coming. It just keeps running, and that's where things get weird. So once you realize YouTube doesn't work the way we assume it does, the next question becomes, what actually happens? So let's paint a picture. You're a successful YouTuber. You have hundreds of thousands of subscribers. You have a ton of evergreen content. Videos are still getting views every day. And then all of a sudden, you pass away. Here's what happens next. Your videos are still live, the ads are still running, and revenue is still being generated. From the outside, it looks like nothing changed, but behind the scenes, AdSense is tied to you, your personal tax ID, your social security number, and your personal Google account. And eventually Google goes, hey, we need to verify this account holder. And it's not like one day Google wakes up and says, hey, I wonder if this creator passed away. What happens is small signals start stacking up. Tax stuff, account reviews, verification checks, and eventually Google goes, okay, we can't confidently verify this payee anymore. And at that point, Google isn't making a judgment call. They're defaulting to compliance and risk controls. And suddenly, payments pause. Money starts piling up in limbo. Your family has no idea who to call or what form to fill out. And this could drag on for months, maybe longer. So let's answer the most important question in this entire episode. Yes, your family can still get paid, but only if things are set up the right way before anything happens. Here's the mistake. Creators think the YouTube channel is the asset. It's not. The asset is the content, the intellectual property, and the monetization structure. If everything lives in your personal name, the channel, AdSense, contracts with sponsors or whoever, your family inherits a mess. The creators who get this right do something different. They have an LLC or a trust that owns the channel. AdSense is tied to that LLC or trust, and their estate transfers control of that entity. The channel keeps operating, payments continue as expected, and your family isn't left trying to figure things out during a hard time. And once people hear that their family can still get paid, the instinct is to solve it in the most simple way possible. This is where people get creative and accidentally blow things up. I've heard things like, I'll just write down my passwords, or my spouse already knows my login. Well, here's the problem. That can actually violate YouTube's terms, and it creates a legal issue. And if Google detects unusual access, accounts will get flagged or frozen. Plus, this part matters, passwords don't give legal authority. Your family needs two things: legal permission and practical access. And they need both, not just one or the other. This is where the idea of a digital executor comes in. And if you've never heard that term before, don't worry, most creators haven't. A digital executor is simply the person you trust to handle your online business if you can't. So they're handling your channels, your content, your monetization. They work alongside your regular executor. They don't replace them. And this is where things really shift for high-earning creators. Most people pick an executor because they're responsible, they're trustworthy, and maybe they're just really good at paperwork. But that doesn't mean that they should be running a YouTube business. So ask yourself, do you want your mom, your spouse, or your best friend deciding what happens to your brand? Sometimes the answer might be yes, but more often than not, it's absolutely not. A digital executor can do these things. They can manage your uploads. They can pause your content intentionally. They can communicate with your sponsors and protect your brand voice. And they decide whether the channel continues, winds down, or possibly gets sold. And no, it doesn't mean that they get everything. It means that they manage it on behalf of your estate. And this decision alone can protect millions in your brand value. But there's another scenario we need to talk about because it actually happens a lot more often than death. You're way more likely to be incapacitated than to suddenly die. So maybe you have some sort of accident or an illness, or you have chronic burnout coupled with medical issues. If you're alive but unable to operate, who's going to continue to upload or talk to your sponsors? Who keeps the channel from just simply imploding? And this is how channels can lose momentum and revenue surprisingly fast because no one has authority to step in. Estate planning for content creators is just as much about business continuity as it is about death. So when this is done well, it's actually pretty simple. It just gets talked about in a confusing way. At a basic level, you're really deciding three things. First, who actually owns your content? Is it you personally, a business, a trust? Someone needs to clearly own it so there's no guessing later. Second, YouTube doesn't pay families or estates. It pays whoever is listed as the owner. If that stays consistent, then payments don't get interrupted. And third, who's allowed to step in and run things if you can't? That's where documented access and a digital executor come in. Not to own anything, just to keep things from falling apart. If your YouTube channel makes real money, it's not just a platform. It's an asset. And assets don't protect themselves. So if this episode made you uncomfortable, that's probably a good thing. It means you're thinking about it before there's a problem. You don't need to act today, just don't ignore it. So share this with another creator who needs to hear it. And if you want to make sure your channel doesn't turn into a mess for your family, you can reach me anytime at brad@finchley.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Brad Clark is a financial advisor, and Lucinda Clark is a registered administrative assistant of Cetera Wealth Services, LLC, member FINRA, SIPC. Finchley Finance is located at 15072 Snowsill Drive, Frisco, Texas, 75035. Brad offers securities through Cetera Wealth Services, LLC, member FINRA, SIPC. Advisory services offered through Cetera Investment Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Cetera is under separate ownership from any other named entity. The views expressed on this podcast are for informational purposes only and are not necessarily those of Cetera. They should not be considered specific advice or recommendations for an individual. Neither Cetera nor its representatives may give legal or tax advice. The views and opinions contained in this material are those of the author and not necessarily the opinion of Cetera, and not a recommendation or solicitation to buy or sell any securities or investment products mentioned herein. This information is from sources believed to be reliable, but Cetera Wealth Services, LLC cannot guarantee or represent that it is accurate or complete. Guests on the show are not affiliated or registered with Cetera Wealth Services, LLC unless specifically stated. Any information provided by the guest is in no way related to Cetera Wealth Services, LLC or its registered representatives. Due to volatility within the markets mentioned, opinions are subject to change without notice. Any references to specific companies, platforms, brands, or products through this podcast, including but not limited to social media platforms, content distribution services, affiliate programs, e-commerce platforms, or consumer brands, are made solely for educational and contextual purposes relevant to the content creator industry and primarily to distinguish a company's goods or services, establish content context and prevent listener confusion. Such references do not constitute a research report, investment recommendation, solicitation, or endorsement of any kind and should not be interpreted as advice to buy, sell, or hold any security instrument or to participate in any particular trading strategy. Finchley Finance and its representatives do not hold Series 86 or 87 registrations and do not publish research reports. Opinions expressed by the owners of this content do not reflect an endorsement by Cetera Wealth Services LLC or its affiliates. Any hypothetical examples, scenarios, or case studies discussed in this podcast are illustrative only and do not represent the actual performance of any specific investment, strategy, or individual. Any figures, percentages, dollar amounts, or numerical examples used may be hypothetical or illustrative in nature and are not intended to represent guaranteed outcomes, specific investment returns, or verified third-party data unless explicitly stated otherwise. All information herein has been prepared solely for informational purposes. Past performance does not guarantee future results. All investing involves risk, including the possible loss of principal, and there could be no assurance that any investment strategy may be successful. Words or phrases that may appear absolute, predictive, or superlative in nature, such as will, always, never, best, should, would, or similar language, are used conversationally for clarity and educational purposes only, and should not be interpreted as promises, guarantees, predictions, or endorsements of any specific financial outcome, strategy, or product for any individual listener.